Okay, so now we are going to look at Lesson F, Grammar Connections. So open your student's book to page 121, page 121. Okay, so in this grammar connection, we are going to focus on present real conditional versus present unreal conditional. Okay, so let's look at this part together real quick. Use present real conditional when something is possible or always true. So, for example, if I have time, I walk to school. Okay, so this is very possible, and it is a likely situation, and it always happens if you have time. So, if I have time, I walk to school. And the second example, if you heat water to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, or 100 degrees Celsius, it boils. Okay, and this is always true. This is a fact. So we just use present tense for this, just like the sun always rises in the east. Okay, but that's not a conditional. It's just an always true sentence. But I just wanted to give you an example of what that means when we say always true. Okay, so if you look at the next one, it says use present unreal conditional when something is not possible or not likely. So, if I found a large bag of money, I would give it to charity. Okay, so is it possible? Maybe, but it's not likely. Okay, and then if I were a bird, I'd fly all over the world. Now, this one is not possible. You cannot be a bird. You are a human. So, as you can see, we use the present unreal conditional when something is not possible or not likely. And if you notice the difference between the present real and present unreal conditionals, the present real conditional uses present tense in both the if clause and the main clause. Now, if you look at the present unreal conditional, it uses past tense in the if clause, and then the modal would in the main clause. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and play the grammar lesson so you can watch it.
Grammar Connections, Unit 9, Lesson F. Present real conditional versus present unreal conditional. Watch and listen. Use present real conditional when something is possible or always true. Present real conditional.
If I have time, I walk to school.
Use present unreal conditional when something is not possible or not likely. Present unreal conditional.
If I found a large bag of money, I would give it to charity.
Present real conditional.
If you heat water to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, it boils.
Present unreal conditional.
If I were a bird, I'd fly all over the world.
Present real conditional.
If we're tired, we take a nap.
Present unreal conditional.
If I became the president, I'd give the people longer weekends.
Present real conditional.
If you cover the cheese, it stays fresh.
Present unreal conditional.
If we had special powers, we'd make everyone in the world smile.
Present real conditional.
If it snows, they go snowboarding.
Present unreal conditional.
If you saw a snake on your car, you'd shout very loudly.
Check your understanding. Look at the first picture and the heading. Complete the first sentence using the correct form of the verbs in parentheses. Use contractions where possible. Look at the second picture and the heading. Complete the second sentence using the correct form of the verbs in parentheses. Use contractions. Now listen to the sentences.
If you heat water to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, it boils.
If I were a bird, I'd fly all over the world.
If we're tired, we take a nap.
If I became the president, I'd give the people longer weekends.
If you cover the cheese, it stays fresh.
If we had special powers, we'd make everyone in the world smile.
If it snows, they go snowboarding.
If you saw a snake on your car, you'd shout very loudly.
Let's review. Present real conditional.
If I have time, I walk to school.
If you heat water to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, it boils.
Present unreal conditional.
If I found a large bag of money, I would give it to charity.
If I were a bird, I'd fly all over the world.
Okay. So now let's take a look at this game. And of course, we're not going to play the game, but we are going to practice using these if clauses. Okay. So what I want you to do is identify whether the sentence is going to be or going to use the present real or the present unreal conditional. So let's take a look at the first example. If I'm late to English class, and you can see an example, I come in quietly. Okay, so this is possible. I'm sure it's happened to all of us, or most of us. And so, if I'm late to English class, I come in quietly. So this is a present real conditional. And you can see that the main clause needs to be in present tense. And the hint is in the if clause. It says if I'm, so if I am late, that's present tense. Okay, now let's look at the second example. If I went on my dream vacation, so this is a hint, went, which is past tense. So we know that this is an unlikely situation. Now, of course, some people are able to go on their dream vacations, but it's very difficult to go on a dream vacation. So we can consider it an unlikely event. So present unreal conditional. If I went on my dream vacation, then we would need to use would in the main clause. Okay, so you could say I would go to the Fiji Islands. Okay, if I went on my dream vacation, I would go to the Fiji Islands. Or you don't have to say where you would go. You could say I would be so happy, or I would take my whole family. Okay. Now, that's not the only thing I want you to do. I also want you to make questions for each sentence. Keep in mind that the helping verb needs to be either in present tense or the not past tense, but it needs to include the modal. Okay, so like when we say what do you do or what should you do, should is a modal. What can I do? Can is also a modal. What will I do? So as you can see, the helping verb can be a form of do, can also be a form of be, and can also include a modal. Okay, so think about how you can form the question based on whether it is present real or present unreal conditional. And also keep in mind that we have to think about the main clause when we form the question. So as an example, if I'm late to English class, I come in quietly. Okay? So we can say, what do you do when, or I'm sorry, if you are or you're late to English class? Again, what do you do if you're late to English class? Okay? So for the helping verb, I use do because come is an action verb, a do verb. So what do you do when if you're late to English class? And then let's look at the second one. The main clause includes the modal would. So we can say, what would you do? What would you do if you went on your dream vacation? Okay, what would you do if you went on your dream vacation? All right. So I want you to go ahead and make questions. Make questions for each sentence and also answer them. So I'm going to give you some time to complete this activity, and we will look at the questions together when you're finished. Okay, so pause the video and continue when you're finished. Okay, so let's look at the third one. We can ask the question, what would you do if you didn't need to sleep? Okay, and so of course this is present unreal conditional because it's impossible not to sleep. Everyone must sleep. So if it says, that's why it uses past tense in the if clause. So what would you do if you didn't need to sleep? Okay. And then the next one, if the weather is nice, so you can see here that the if clause is in present tense, and also it is quite possible for the weather to be nice. So we can ask, what do you do if the weather is nice? What do you do if the weather is nice? Okay. We can say, if the weather is nice, I take a walk. Okay. And then the next one, what would you do if you bought all new appliances? Okay, so even though this is somewhat possible, it's very unlikely because it's very expensive. So what would you do if you bought all new appliances? Okay, bought is past tense, as you can see. So present unreal. And then, if I'm thirsty. Now this is a very common, very possible situation. So you can ask, what do you do if you're thirsty? This is a pretty obvious answer. So if I'm thirsty, I drink water. Maybe you do something different. But that's a pretty simple sentence. Okay, if I won the lottery, we can ask, what would you do if you won the lottery? What would you do if you won the lottery? Now, this is a very common question. Kids love to ask this all the time. Actually, adults too. But kids often also ask, what would you do if you had $1 million? What would you do if you had $1 million? That's a very similar kind of question. Okay? And then the next one. What would you do if you only rode your bicycle? What would you do if you only rode your bicycle? So this might be a pretty likely if you lived in a different country, or if you lived in the middle of the city where it's difficult to park and drive a car, or there's too much traffic and it's easier to ride your bicycle, then yeah, this is possible. But for many of us, it's not possible because we live in the suburbs and we need to have a car. So we can say, what would you do if you only rode your bicycle? You could say, oh, if I only rode my bicycle, I would be 10 pounds lighter. Okay, and then the next one. What do you do if you don't understand something? What do you do if you don't understand something? Okay, and then What would you do if you were the leader of your country? What would you do if you were the leader of your country? Okay, and then, what do you do if you stay up too late? What do you do if you stay up too late? Okay, and then, what do you do if you don't eat breakfast? What do you do if you don't eat breakfast? And then, what would you do if you could do one thing to save our planet? What would you do if you could do one thing to save our planet? Now, you might be wondering, isn't it possible to do one thing to save our planet? That seems pretty easy and pretty doable. And that's true. Everyone can do one thing at least to save our planet. But this kind of conditional, especially when we are talking about saving the planet, it's a very big effort, and it's possible, but very challenging to save our planet. So in this case, we need to use the present unreal conditional. What would you do if you could save, or if you could do one thing to save our planet? Okay, and then lastly, what would you do if you were invisible? What would you do if you were invisible? Okay, and this sentence, if you remember, we talked about using the be verb in the if clause. Then if it's an unreal conditional, we have to use were. Okay, it doesn't matter what the subject is. If it's a be verb and it's an unreal conditional, we use the word were. Okay. I hope you enjoyed making sentences with these if clauses, and of course I can't check your answers, so I trust that you did well. But we are going to end our lesson here, and we'll see you next time.